What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Gamecite Chronicles, the console gaming podcast where we sit down each and every week to talk about our favorite hobby, video games. I'm your host, Bonfire, and thank you all for tuning in. This is episode number 4, numero cuatro, and pretty exciting. We're 4 episodes in. I feel like I'm finding a little bit of groove in terms of putting together my notes for the show and setting up kind of a consistent schedule. So I feel like I'm kind of getting into a groove here and things are moving along, and albeit I'm recording a little bit later in the week than I would have normally planned, but that's just kind of how things go sometimes. Life gets in the way and you got to rearrange a few things to kind of make it work. So nonetheless, here we are. First of all, I want to say thank you all for tuning in to last week's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation and my rankings of the Soulsborne games. I still haven't dove into Elden Ring, but it's certainly looking better and better the more I hear folks talk about it. And as always, thank you for your support of the show. I really do appreciate it. Now, before we get into anything, I want to say I hope you're all doing well out there. Again, crazy times we're living in, but it's kind of a little gloomy here today as I record this episode. But hopefully wherever you are, things are going well and you're playing lots of video games. Now, remember, the best way to support the show is to leave a comment on whatever platform you're listening and rate the show on the podcast platforms. That is the best way to get into like the algorithms and kind of get the shows popping up and things like that. So if you could do that, that would be very much appreciated, as that is the best way to support the show. And also, if you want to join the community, head on over to Locals. So it's the gamesitechronicles.locals.com, or you can just go to locals.com and search for it. And that's where the community will be. So I'd love to see you over there. Love to get you guys over there. And it's a really cool website. Like I said, there's a lot of different content creators on there, depending on what you're looking for. That you find me, but you may find some other people that you're super interested in and enjoy their content. And lastly, you can follow us on Twitter at Gamecite Podcast is the handle. Love to chat with you over there as well. And I wanted to give a shout out to one of our podcast listeners who goes by the handle Trilogy, who left a comment on the last episode, and I wanted to share it. So he says, listening to this while fighting the Abyss Watchers. So again, if you recall last episode, we talked about Elden Ring, From Software, and all the Soulsborne games. I provided my rankings of those. And a friend of ours, he's listening to the show while he's fighting the Abyss Watchers, which is a great boss battle. And I just want to give him a shout out. So thank you. Appreciate the comments. Hope you took those guys down. They can be annoying if this is your first time playing it, but they're not too bad. There's definitely much more difficult boss battles in that game. So shout out to Trilogy. Thank you for your comment. I really do appreciate it. Now this week, I was going to do a different topic. I was going to kind of go into some of my favorite, what I think are underrated games from the last generation. So PS4, Xbox One. And walk through a few of those. But PlayStation decides to come out and drop a state of play, so we're going to cover that today. I figure we got to cover that because there was quite a few game announcements, games that were shown off, and I wanted to share my thoughts. These showcases happen so infrequently, though I feel like in the last month and a half we've had 3 or 4, but they usually are pretty infrequently up until like E3 time, beginning of summer. But I got to react to. I want to share my thoughts. I want to react to this a little bit and kind of provide my take on the state of play and some of the games that were announced, because that's always fun to do, and it's a great topic for the podcast. So I'll kind of slot the underrated games topic for another week. Put that back in the bold pocket. And this week we're talking all PlayStation state of play. But before we get into that, we got to talk about the games that we've been playing. So what are some games I've been playing? And really, from last week, I haven't had a ton of time to dive into games, but I've been playing more Horizon Forbidden West. That's pretty obvious. And so I don't have too much more to say about it. Again, I'm still getting caught up on the side quests, still doing side activities. And this last day or two, I've tried to do more of the main story, so I've been kind of going along that. But a couple of things I haven't talked about that I did want to mention is the game has I'm playing on PS5, and I'm noticing the fast load times, which if you've played Miles Morales on PS5, those load times are practically instantaneous, which is incredible. And with this, I didn't realize it at first because you do, like if you fast travel between camps and stuff like that, it'll pop up a loading screen. And in the bottom right corner of the screen, it'll show the little icon where it's loading, and then it'll pop up, the X button. I didn't catch that it changed from the loading screen to the X button. Not right away, at least. And if it within a matter of seconds, the X button pops up and you can just press that and load right back into the game. So really the load times between fast travels and stuff are just a matter of seconds on the PlayStation 5. And that's awesome. So shout out to the fast load times on this game. And then the other thing, I know I talked a little bit about this last week around the combat and how I've been struggling with it. And I'll report I'm getting a little better at the combat because I've been spending time doing some of the combat arenas, which kind of teaches you some of the different techniques and moves and abilities that are in the game. And I've been doing, the hunting grounds, which those are familiar of those that have played the first game. So just doing more of those has kind of helped me learn some new techniques. And I've gotten some better weapons and spent some time upgrading those and things like that. So I feel like I'm getting better, picking up more on it. But I gotta say, the enemy AI it's good. It's challenging. It's very challenging. And I decided to try to take down one of the T-Rex ones, which I think they're called Thunderjaws, if I remember correctly. And this one was pretty leveled up. There was a few levels above me, and it was tough. It was super, super tough. Like this guy he was kicking my ass. It took me several tries to finally take him down, but I finally figured out a good strategy to take him down. It was super satisfying, and it's just challenging, man. One of the other things too about the combat and the enemies is there's actually enemy variations. So you can find like different chemical versions. So like there's maybe a poison one or an ice one, and there's like an apex version of the dino robots and stuff like that, which I think means it's just a little tougher. So there is definitely certainly a lot of variety with the enemies. They're way smarter than I think they were in the first game, and it's definitely challenging. Like I said, I'm playing on normal, but I'm still getting my ass handed to me. So it's good. It's really, really good. I'm enjoying it. Well, I'm going to continue playing it. And then the other game I just briefly dove into because I've been mentioning the last couple of weeks I wanted to dive into some sort of JRPG. And recently, I think in the last week and a half or so, Triangle Strategy launched on the Switch. And they have a demo. And one of the things that's neat about their demo is that I think it includes the first 3 chapters of the game, and your progress will carry over into the main game if you decide to pick it up. So I was like, maybe, I've been wanting to play a role-playing game. I was like, maybe this will kind of satisfy that craving. So I downloaded the demo and finally dove into it. And I really only played roughly 30 minutes or so, just enough to kind of go through the intro dialogue and then the first battle, like the kind of introductory battle, just kind of get a feel of the system. And I do want to play more of it, but I'm getting like Fire Emblem vibes. And probably that's because, the last tactical role-playing game I played was Fire Emblem, Three Houses. And the similarities are just uncanny there. So I'm just getting super Fire Emblem vibes, though I'm sure that's common with a lot of, tactical RPGs or strategy RPG games. I'm not super familiar with those. Really, my experience comes from Valkyria Chronicles, which is so good, so good. But nonetheless, it's fun. I do want to spend some more time with it, but, I don't know. Between trying to get through Horizon and really, Elden Ring's just staring at my face every single day, I don't know how much more I'm going to play, but I did want to report on that. And then, the other game, I haven't played it yet, but I did want to give it a shout out because it looks really cool, and I think I'm going to pick it up, is called Dark Devotion. And I was actually looking through a thread on Twitter of people talking about what they think is underrated games, and someone put this one in there. And they said it's a 2D Souls-like game, and I was like, that's like right up my alley. Yes, you're talking my love language there. And so I looked it up, and it looks really interesting. It came out in 2019. It's actually currently on sale in the PlayStation Store. And so I don't know, it looked really interesting. It's definitely got a very similar art style to Death's Gambit, if you've ever played that, which I would highly recommend you do. That is a fantastic game. and you play a Templar. It's this like Templar. It seems like maybe a little bit of religion in there, and yeah, I don't know. I watched the little video on the PlayStation Store, and I don't know. I think I'm gonna pick it up because it looks pretty cool. So I'll report out if I do dive into it here pretty soon, or if you've played it, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. But that's it. I mean, that's all I've really been playing. Like I said, not a ton of time to do a lot of gaming, but I got some in. And one thing I forgot to mention too, I did check my hour count on Horizon Forbidden West, and it says I'm at 37 hours, which seems a little excessive, a little inflated, because I think it's kind of like pause windows, maybe like when I let the dog out or something like that. But nonetheless, 37 hours in, and I still feel like I've barely scratched the surface of that game. So there it is. And now, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about that PlayStation State of Play. And this is another showcase. And as I talked about briefly in the first episode, our debut episode of the podcast, it's these showcases from publishers and the console manufacturers like PlayStation, Nintendo, and Xbox are always interesting because everyone's got an opinion, and you see a wide spectrum of opinions out there on the internet from various creators in terms of oh, this is the best show ever, or like, oh, that was straight trash, and then kind of everything in between. So it's always kind of fascinating to see, and I stand by the point, man, in that you kind of have to temper your expectations for these, for one, and then two, I think you have to try to look at it as objective as possible and understand that not every game is going to speak to you, not every game is for you, and you don't have to play every single game that's announced during these showcases. So if you take that in mind, maybe pick out a game or two that does speak to you and kind of judge it on that. There you go. I don't think that's difficult or anything that's super hard to ask for, but nonetheless, the PlayStation State of Play happened this I think it's this past Wednesday, which usually they do them on Thursdays, so a little interesting there, but it happened, and it was approximately, I think, around 22 minutes long, and it was from all third-party publishers and developers to showcase some of those games. So how I want to do this is I want to go through each game that was announced, share some of my thoughts, give a little details on it. I did look up some of these games because the PlayStation blog, if you've ever looked at that, has quite a few details on some of these games if you're so inclined. And I actually learned some more stuff about some of these that I didn't know or couldn't take away from some of the trailers in the State of Play. So here we go. Let's get through it. So they opened it up with Exoprimal. And this is a new game from Capcom. It's slated to come out sometime in 2023, so a little ways off, a little over a year probably. Could be a year and a half, depending on what time frame of 2023 it comes out in. And it's described as a 5-player kind of co-op shoot 'em up, and it's basically you have kind of exosuits fighting dinosaurs, like waves of dinosaurs. Like dinosaurs are falling from the sky, coming through these various portals and stuff like that, and you're just fighting waves and waves of dinosaurs. And as I'm watching this, I'm getting total Anthem vibes with Dynasty Warriors. And not Anthem in the sense that like it's going to flop like Anthem. We'll see, but Anthem just because it got the exosuits, kind of similar aesthetics and things like that. And then Dynasty Warriors, because they show, like in some of the gameplay, they show you just fighting these huge waves of dinosaurs. So it just kind of feels something like that, maybe kind of a wave-based shooter. I don't know. It's a shoot 'em up game, so we'll kind of see. But those are the vibes I'm getting. Also with a mix of a little Warframe, just in the, I don't know, kind of in the aesthetic, maybe just kind of what I was seeing. I don't know. Something about me was saying kind of Warframey. So I don't know if this is going to be like a live service game or if there's going to be any, story to it. I really don't know much about this game, and the write-up on the PlayStation blog didn't have too many details to share. But one thing as I was watching this, at first I was like, wait, is this Dino Crisis? If anyone remembers that, I think it was on a PS1 game. And even one of the character shots that they showed in there looked like the main character from Dino Crisis. And so I was thinking to myself, is this Dino Crisis? And then, they got the mechs and they kind of deviated from that. But nonetheless, Exoprimal, I don't know, man. It didn't really speak to me in watching the trailer. I'll kind of reserve full judgment to see a little bit more and learn more about this game. But I'm not getting the best vibes from it. I don't know. It doesn't really speak to me. After that, it was an obligatory trailer for Ghostwire Tokyo. And that I would say that's one of my main criticisms with these State of Plays is that you can tell when they have like contractually obligated trailers that they need to shove into these presentations. And Ghostwire Tokyo was certainly one of those. Like how many times, like for the last, I don't know, 5 or 6 data plays, it sure feels like we see a trailer for Ghostwire Tokyo. It's like, yes, we know it's coming out. I think, what is it, March 25th, I believe it is, of this year. So literally in like 2 weeks. Yeah, we get it. It's coming out. I'm, like, I don't need to see this. I don't understand. So, yeah, Ghostwire Tokyo, another trailer that they probably had to put in there. So, yeah. And then after that, I would argue another contractually obligated trailer for Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origins. And that comes out actually even sooner, next week. So about a week from the recording of this podcast on March 18th. And I don't know, man. They've showed this game off several times, and they've had a couple of demos for it. And at the end of this trailer, another demo came out for this one, so you can play that. And I don't know. I see this game. I think it's done by Team Ninja, who also did the Neo games, and while I haven't played the Neo games fully, I did play one of like the beta or alphas of Neo, the first one, when that was before that game came out, and I liked what I had played. I've just never gotten around to playing the Neo games, though I know I have a feeling I'll enjoy them because I like those, the Souls-like games. But when I see this, Team Ninja I think has promise, but when I was looking at this and seeing the trailers, it just looks generic. Like the character models look generic, the dialogue sounds a little generic. I don't know. I don't really feel like this fits Final Fantasy. So it's not to say it won't work. And from what I've seen from kind of trailer to trailer and demo to demo and watching some gameplay, it seems like it's gotten better and better. So we'll see when the final product comes out, but I don't know, man. This game just I don't really feel like it's resonating with a lot of folks, myself included. And I really haven't been hearing a lot of like noise or excitement around this game. I mean, it is a Final Fantasy spinoff, but I don't know. But we'll see. Comes out next week. We'll see if there's any hype around it, what the reviews are like. But there's a new demo if you want to go try it out on the PlayStation Store. And then after that, they moved into Forspoken. I would say another contractually obligated trailer. And it's funny because earlier this week, before the state of play, it was announced that Forspoken was delayed. So I think this game was originally slated to be the end of May. I want to say like May 23rd or something like that. I don't know, that date sticks out in my mind, but I believe it was originally slated for May. And it was pushed out to October, so 5 months or so, to October 11th. That's the new release date this year. This trailer, I'll give them credit because this one looked a little bit more interesting. They showed off some combat, some of the enemies and things like that. And so I will say it looks more interesting. I think the combat looks fun. I would like to get my hands on it a little bit. But I think one of the criticisms that a lot of people said, myself included, from the first trailer or two was that the world just looks empty. Looks like there's nothing here to see, to explore. There's nothing. And I think they took that criticism and like, okay, well, there's actually things here, and let's just throw in a bunch of enemies into the world. And look, our world is populated, but I don't think that's that. I still get those on I'm still getting the same vibes is what I'm trying to say. So like, just because you throw in a bunch of enemies doesn't mean this world is now interesting and not empty. It just means you've placed random things there. So I don't know. I still get the empty world vibes. And one thing I can't get over this game. Like, I'll be honest, I have zero interest in this game from everything that I've seen. Albeit this trailer did make it look a little better, I still can't get over what I've already seen from the previous trailers. Mostly the cringy dialogue and this very bland, I hate to say it, but stereotypical character that it just seems so uninteresting. In the dialogue, I think from the trailer before this that they showed off, the dialogue was atrocious. Like, so bad. It was so cringy. Like, because she's, I think, from New York and then gets thrown into this fantasy world from like some portal or something like that. And all of a sudden she's got powers and she's like, did I just move that with my mind? Or did that just come out of my hand? Whoa. It's like, no, this is so bad. Like, why? I get dialogue is probably really hard to write. I understand that, and I can be empathetic towards that. But this is just bad. And this character, this might sound bad, may come across bad, but it seems very stereotypical. And I also feel like there's a little, how do I say this, virtue signaling with this game, because the catchphrase for this game is "She will rise." And I read that, and it's just, again, it's cringy. It's like, okay. And I feel like the developers are saying like, hey, look at us. We have a female protagonist character who's a person of color. Look at us. You need to play this game. It's awesome. But the character, from what I've seen, is very uninteresting, doesn't have good dialogue, and the world seems empty. Like, I'm not sold on this game. It doesn't look interesting whatsoever. And just because you think you've got some female protagonist, and that all the games media journos are just going to drool over, doesn't make this a good game. I don't know. Maybe I'm in the minority here, but I got to say this game does not look interesting. And I'm just kind of getting these like virtue signaling vibes, kind of the icing on the cake, but of everything I've seen. And I can deal with, virtue signaling games. I mean, let's see. What was it? Wolfenstein 2, I think the New Order, I think that one was. That certainly had some, I'll say, virtue signaling type wokeness in it with some of its characters and dialogue and things like that. And so I can deal with it. And that's not why I dislike some of these games. But with that's not why I'm not going to like this game. I'm not going to like this game because the world looks empty. The dialogue sounds cringe. And this character seems super bland. Like, you got to sell me on these things. And I just don't think they're doing a very good job. And this game being delayed, I don't know. A delay is not necessarily a bad thing, but it tells me that they maybe want to polish some stuff up, or maybe they're seeing something in the pre-order numbers. So like, okay, we got to fix something, or not that the game's totally going to change in 6 months or 5 months. That's not going to happen. But I don't know, man. I don't have a good feeling about this game, and I'll just leave it at that. But I'm sure you'll let me know your thoughts down in the comments. So after that game, they moved into a game called Gundam Evolution, and this comes out spring of 2022. And this is a first-person multiplayer shooter game with Gundams. And I've always liked the Gundam universe. Like Gundams are just cool in general, like giant robots. I never really watched the series or kind of got into any of that stuff, but I've always thought they looked cool. And so seeing this and watching some of the gameplay of the show, like, I think this looks really fun, and I would absolutely try this out. Totally. Like, this looks awesome. I think it looks great. My question for this was, is this going to be a paid title or is it free to play? I'm seeing it and I'm thinking this would be a great free to play title, or a game at least that would come out and be available for PS Plus subscribers or come out day one to Game Pass. I think that would be a good approach. However, I did read the PS blog about this game, and they stated that it is free to play. It's 6v6 battles, and there's actually a closed network test coming in the spring. So probably right before it's launched, just to kind of test the servers and stuff like that. So that encourages me. I like that they've came out and clarified it is free to play, because I was thinking if this game's not free to play, this is going to flop so hard, because I just don't think people, with so many really good free to play games out there, or games with very low barrier of entries, I just don't think a game like this, having to pay for it, would survive. So I'm excited to see that. I'm definitely going to keep my eye on this one because I want to try it out. It looks really fun. Gundam Evolution. What more can I say about that one? And then after that one, they moved into what I thought was going to be the new Turtles game. I think Shredder's Revenge, which is kind of that beat 'em up, kind of pixel art game that looks absolutely incredible. It's supposed to come out sometime this year, and I think it's done by the same guys that did Streets of Rage 4. But it was actually TMNT, the Cowabunga collection, coming out 2022. No release window, just sometime this year. And this is awesome. We talked, 2 episodes ago about game preservation and losing access to some games. Well, this is bringing some of those old classics to modern consoles. That's just amazing. I love that. I love this idea of let's bring back these classic games in a collection, make it available on modern platforms. So I love it. This is right up my alley. This is what I'm talking about, people. This is what I'm talking about. This is great. But 13 games in total. That's awesome. And I'm going to read some of them because I didn't write them down, but on the PlayStation Store, it walks through them. So the games are Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the arcade version, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time, which is a classic, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from Nintendo, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game from Nintendo, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, the Manhattan Project that was on Nintendo, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighters, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4, Turtles in Time, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighters, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles The Hyperstone Heist, which is interesting, and I haven't played all these, TMNT Tournament Fighters. So there's a couple different versions. Oh, let's see. Oh, some of them are online games. Got it. Online titles. So the repeats that I'm saying those are online versions, I think. TMNT Fall of the Foot Clan, which is a Game Boy game. TNMT 2 Back from the Sewers, and TNM 3 Radical Rescue. So that's what's here on the PlayStation Store. That's awesome. Like, I remember the Nintendo one, I think TMNT, the first one on Nintendo. And I remember Turtles in Time, and I also remember the arcade game, which that's a classic. I mean, I even think if you go to arcades today, if it's got that, I mean, you've got to play it. Like, that's just such a classic game. And that's what that new Turtle game, Shredder's Revenge, looks like. Looks like a sequel to those arcade games. So this is awesome. I think this is really, really cool. Again, no definite release date, but sometime this year. So if you're a Turtles fan, like growing up, I was the biggest Turtles fan. And I loved Donatello. He was my favorite turtle. What can I say? Because he was smart and thought he was like super techie and stuff like that. So TMNT, the Cowabunga collection, I think it looks super dope. And then they followed that one up with a game called Gigabash, which again also has a 2022 release window. So sometimes this year. This game didn't speak to me whatsoever. Apparently it's a kaiju brawler, so a bunch of kaijus and stuff like that, just running around. I think it's multiplayer. You go and destroy cities, beat each other up, stuff like that. I don't know. It doesn't speak to me, but that game is showing off. So if you like those games or like that style of games, that might be the game for you to check out. And then another one that didn't speak to me, which is JoJo's Bizarre Adventure All-Star Brawler, which is a JoJo's Bizarre Adventure fighting game. Coming out fall 2022. It's going to have 50 characters available. And this is another one. Like, I have no idea what JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I know it's an anime. That's all I know of it. I've never seen it. I'm not big into fighting games outside of like Smash. So this is another one just like, okay, doesn't speak to me. But if you like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, this might be one to check out. 50 characters seems like a pretty sizable roster too. So something to look forward to. And then after that was a really interesting game. So it's a game called Trek to Yomi, coming out spring of 2022, so presumably in the next 3 months or so. And this is a samurai, like, action-adventure game. And they showed samurai fighting. It was kind of this 2D, almost fighting format of samurais fighting each other. It's all in black and white, from what I could tell, at least in the trailer. And it also did go from, like, 2D to 3D when you're kind of going through some adventure zones. It kind of seemed more 3D, and then it would go, like, when you're fighting, it's more 2D. And according to the PS blog, this is a game that's influenced by historical Japan and Shinto mythology. And I don't know much about Shinto, but they described it as like basically gods are kind of present everywhere, like in trees, rocks, all that stuff. So just, I don't know, this looks really interesting. And as I'm watching this, I'm immediately getting obviously Ghost of Tsushima vibes. It's hard not to compare like any samurai or Japanese samurai game to Ghost of Tsushima now, because that game is so good and it's very mainstream, I'd say. So it's hard to not compare the two, but I don't know, it looks really interesting. I think it's done by a small developer. So, shout out to them for getting this airtime. I'm sure that was great for them. And, I don't know go check it out. It looks really, really interesting. I'll keep my eye on it. I don't know if it's a game I would pick up right away, but it's a game I kind of want to see how it plays out. I want to see how the reviews go. I want to watch some gameplay. I want like some streamers streaming on Twitch just to see what it looks like. And because they showed a lot of fighting, and it's like, okay, I get the fighting, but like, is there a world to explore? Because I kind of got the sense that maybe there's a little bit of that. Is this like a linear game, a little bit open world, semi-open world? I don't know. I feel like I need to know some more information. before I make full judgment on that. But I do think it's really interesting. So Trek to Yomi, again, spring 2022. So presumably pretty soon. And then after that was a kind of a really surprising one. It's Returnal. They showed off some DLC for Returnal. And as I'm watching the video of this trailer, I'm like, wait, that's Returnal. I was like, are we getting like a DLC expansion? In a way, yes, we are. So they're doing a 3.0 update, which is a free update. And this includes 2 new modes, essentially. So one is a co-op mode where you can play the game cooperatively with a friend, which that's pretty neat. I think that's kind of cool. And then the other mode is a survival mode. So it's this endless tower, and it's called the Tower of Sisyphus. I don't know if I'm saying that right. It's Sisyphus. Sisyphus. And this is a tower that has no end, so it just gets more difficult after you kind of go each level. The interesting thing about it is it seems like Housemarque's kind of going back to their roots of more of an arcade game, because this tower mode is more arcade-like, and that there's scores, there's multiplayers, and you try to get the highest score and get as far as you can. And they also mentioned in the PS blog that there's new narrative elements to find in this tower. So to learn more about, I think the main character is Celine, so more of her story, where her mindset's at and stuff like that. So I think this is pretty cool. It comes out later this month, actually. I can't remember if they put it away. I couldn't find a specific release date, but later this month. And this may get me back into Returnal. I've kind of been wanting to get back into Returnal. I did beat it. And when I beat it, it was pre one of the patches, I think, because none of the trophies were popping for me, like as I beat bosses, which kind of frustrates me because I did beat the game and I kind of want those trophies to show for it. But I think one of the later patches they released kind of retros that. So if I pop the game in, play it, it'll pop the trophies that I collected through that playthrough. So I'd like to do that, and I wouldn't mind trying this tower mode. Sounds kind of fun, maybe something to kind of just do on the side and do a few rounds and call it a day. So I think this is really cool. I think it's a surprise announcement. I didn't really see it coming. I wasn't sure if they'd do anything more for this game or not, so I'm happy to see that. And then they finished with 2 games from Square Enix. And I gotta say, before I get into these, it was interesting seeing these games back to back because I feel like they looked very samey, even though they're not. They looked very samey in terms of aesthetic. And I feel like they would have been better kind of spaced throughout the show a little bit. But nonetheless, that's just how it went. These 2 bangers at the end. So the first one is called the Diofield Chronicle. Comes out 2022 from Square Enix. And I think it's also done by the same guys that just launched Triangle Strategy. And it is another strategy game. And the PlayStation blog describes it as a real-time tactical battle system, and that the world is inspired by fantasy, medieval, and modern influences. So really interesting there. And I think this game looks cool. I thought it looked cool when I first saw it. I actually just rewatched the trailer again before recording the podcast, and I'm liking it more and more. I see it. I think it looks really cool. This is one that I'm definitely going to keep an eye on. And as of right now, kind of want to pick up day one. I think it looks really cool. And as I was watching the trailer for the second time again, I'm getting Valkyria Chronicles vibes. And if you know me, which many of you don't, because we're just getting to know each other through this new podcast, but Valkyria Chronicles is like one of my all-time favorite games. I adore that game. It's fantastic. If you haven't played it, it's remastered, available on the PS4. Go play it. It's so good. It's another, strategy, tactical game. Great characters. Fun gameplay. And I'm getting those vibes from this. It looks really interesting. I don't know. I just think it looks really cool. And I want to learn more about it. I'm hoping it's maybe like a late summer game. I think would be a good time. Just kind of a nice window to kind of sink your teeth into it. So yeah, the Diofield Chronicle. Really interesting name too. I don't know what that means, but we'll find out, I suppose. And then lastly, they wrapped up the show with this one called Valkyrie Elysium, which is also slated for 2022, but no specific window. And this one is an action RPG. And as I'm watching this, I was like, I don't know, this kind of looks generic. Not knowing what this was, I thought this looked pretty generic. And it just looked like another kind of, action role-playing game that is a Square Enix game. Great. But learning more about it and reading the PlayStation blog, this is the revival of the Valkyrie Profile series, which debuted back in 1999. I guess it's been dormant for a few years as well. So, yeah, Valkyrie Elysium. And so one of the other things that's kind of, I guess, neat about this franchise is that it's heavily inspired by Norse mythology. So if you're into that, that might speak to you. But pretty cool. They're bringing the series back. I think for fans of that, I'm sure that's super exciting. It was a nice kind of little banger to end the show with, but it didn't really speak to me. I'll keep my eye on it, but the Battlefield Chronicles is more at my alley, I'd say. And that was the show. Those were all the games. And in retrospective, I gotta say, I think it's a pretty good state of play. Again, not they had a few of those contractually obligated trailers, for like Ghostwire, Final Fantasy, Forspoken, which I could do without. Like, I know those games are coming, and it's funny with the Forspoken one, they didn't even mention the delay, because I have a feeling this was put together before the delay happened. It was meant to kind of promote the game coming out in a couple months, but yeah, so just really interesting. But I would say overall good stuff. I think there were definitely some surprising games in there, like Exoprimal. I think that's a big one that I think people will keep their eye on. I don't think the Gundam Revolution, I don't know, Gundam Evolution, I should say. Again, I don't think that's going to speak to everyone, but I think it looks really cool. The TMNT, that's a surprise, and I think that's a welcome surprise to bring those games back. And then Trek to Yomi is a really cool looking game. The Returnal one was a surprise. And then the last two Square Enix ones I think were great. Really good. So yeah, I think it was overall a good show. Again, probably not games for everyone, but some strong support from their third-party ones. And I'll be honest, I don't know if like the Battlefield Chronicle or Valkyrie Elysium are PlayStation console exclusives. I couldn't find information on that, albeit I didn't look that hard, but nonetheless, I know some of these are multi-platform and stuff like that. So I would imagine Exoprimal is. Same with Gundam Evolution, TMNT, so on. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's a good show. I think it was a fine showing. Wasn't super long either. It was just kind of back to back, packed with some good games from their partners. And some exciting stuff, I think, to look forward to this year. I think all of this, but all of it, but the first game from Capcom is slated to come out this year. So some good stuff, I think, coming to PlayStation. And like I said, man, the Battlefield Chronicle. I'm really into that game now. Watching that trailer a second time really kind of sucked me into it. Like, I want to know more. I want this game. I want to play it. But let me know your thoughts about the state of play. Which game spoke to you the most? Down in the comments below. Love to hear from you, and bring in those comments to the show. So again, one of the best things you guys can do for the show is leave comments, leave ratings on your favorite podcast platforms. That always helps out with all the algorithms and the searches and stuff like that. So it's much appreciated. Thank you again for your love, kindness, and support of the show. And that'll do it. So I hope you guys have a great week. Hope you play lots of video games. And until next time, I'm Bonfire, and I will see you online.